What were some of the daily habits that you started doing that helped you on this path?
So my first number one foundational habit after I came to the realization that autopilot for me was real, right? I had been checking out, I call it my spaceship, from that point of overwhelm since I was a child. And that created an adult that, yes, I was very savvy at life. I had what one might call a very successful life. I kept the job, I kept partnerships, I existed in it. I even had conversations with people around me. However, I did so from such a disconnected place. And I got so good at it. I wasn't just like in childhood, I wasn't actually present to the environment around me. It remained difficult for me to form memories. It became a joke in my friend groups in high school. Oh, Nicole never remembers what is happening. And I carried that with me to adulthood because I never really was paying attention. My attention was either in, kind of rehearsing things that stressed me out that morning. I love to anticipate stress in the future, or I just was somewhere else, just not really present here. So my number one foundational habit that I suggest to all of us out there, because autopilot is real. And for a lot of us, that's the reason we're stuck. Those habits and patterns that once served us aren't serving us in our current environment yet. We're going to continue to live in them until we become conscious. Change doesn't happen to us. We have to create it. And we create it by becoming really present to what is happening. What do I do first thing in the morning? What am I thinking? How am I behaving in the world around me? So my foundational habit became creating a new practice of consciousness. What does it mean to be conscious? Fully present. For some of us, that means to be present in our body. How does it even feel to be in my body right now? What are my muscles feeling like? How is it to be in this chair extending outward? What about in the room around me? I have some lights coming in on me, right? What's going on? Where am I here and now? And because this is a habit that many of us aren't used to practicing, we can be helped by reminders on our phone. For one of the major things I did for myself was I set a reminder for a random time. I called it a consciousness check-in for during my waking day. And I would do this every morning and I wouldn't know what time my alarm would go off. And whenever it would go off, so say 1 o'clock PM that afternoon, my alarm went off. And I did two things in that moment. First, I noticed, well, what were you doing? What were you paying attention to? More often than not, it wasn't whatever I was doing in the moment ahead of me. I was thinking, I was worrying, I was just sitting, staring. I wasn't really here, even if something was going on in the moment around me, even if I was attempting to work, having a conversation with someone. And then the next step is we want to do the work or embody the practice now of being conscious. So I did that. I learned how to use my body, use my senses, even just ask myself that, okay, Nicole, what are you feeling in this moment? What are you feeling in the room around you? How is your body? And then I built on those moments. Like I shared, what started with one small daily promise. I started to do that just one time during my day. And then I built on that foundation. And for me and for everyone that is listening, that becomes that foundation for change. When we become present to what we are doing, for some of us, that might be surprising in and of itself. We might think life looks different than it really does. Once we're present to it, then that creates the space, like I say. Then I can start to assess, okay, how are these choices? How are these thoughts? How are these ways I'm being serving me? And when the answer is, as it is for a lot of us, they're not, or this other practice or habit would serve me better, now we give ourselves the opportunity to make those new choices.
You spoke before about something that I used to do a lot in my past, which is anticipating anxiety or anticipating worry. And why do we do that? Like, you might be going to work and you think, I'm going to see this person, they're going to be like this, or this person's going to do this. And you don't even realize that you're making up these stories that have never happened and may never happen in your head. And you've created this whole narrative to worry yourself. Why? Yeah, why do we do that?
Yeah, so our brain, it has many different functions. And one of the functions that it has is it's what we call a prediction maker. It
Yeah.
needs to, like I said, anticipate what is going to happen. And everything, most things, and I talk a lot about our evolution and kind of the biology of us, because that is very impactful. Most of all of these drives are to keep us alive. And so usually at a time in childhood, even if now, right, what we're imagining, what we're anticipating isn't really what's happening, chances are it might have been at one time. Because what our brain uses to predict what could happen is what once did happen, more or
Yeah.
less on or around the same feeling or event. So in childhood, usually is where this kind of tendency to predict comes. And it comes again it comes through an interaction between us and our environment. And if when we live in environments that are unsafe to whatever degree they are unsafe or whatever consistency they are unsafe, we actually create a safety for ourselves in childhood. Again, usually the only way that we can, by that anticipation, by playing the tape out, because sometimes we can be very adaptive by making that anticipation, right? If I know that when mom comes home, if my room isn't cleaned, I can't anticipate that mom will get upset, and that will obviously dysregulate and upset me. I can become so attuned to the state that mom is in. I can clean my room and I can keep myself safe by having that anticipation in a sense. However, like I said, we continue to do that for the same reason, because that which once kept us safe, we believe will always keep us safe. We
Yeah.
use the same events that happen as a prediction for what's going to happen next. And as you can all imagine, by even listening to this, we then remain stuck in those same cycles, because what happens behind the scenes when we're thinking thoughts of worry, like I mentioned earlier, they're coming from a stressed out body, and the stressed out body is communicating, I'm stressed. So your mind is doing the only thing it can do, looking for the next stressor, the conversation that you might have with your colleague tomorrow at work. And the more you're worrying about now that conversation that you might have tomorrow at work, in an attempt, you think, to protect yourself, you're continuing that worry, continuing then to dysregulate your body, keeping you locked in that fight or flight, continuing to send those same signals. You're still stressed. You're still worried. Where's the stress? Oh, right, it's tomorrow. And that's why we get locked now in this thinking and feeling cycle around stress in particular, because we never break the chain. We never become fully present, or we never teach our body that it is actually safe. So we never actually send different messages.
You talk a lot about the mind, body, spirit connection. Where did the spirit part come in for you?
So the spirit part has been an interesting aspect of my journey, because there was a very long time in my past being raised in a Catholic religion, and in Catholic, schooling for a very long time, and transitioning from that sort of mindset into the very much scientific mindset. Once I was on path to become a psychologist, a practitioner of science in a sense, I very much started to look down on anything that felt religion based, anything I heard the word spirit or soul. It felt, the word that I think a lot of us like to use, it felt very woo woo and didn't feel like it was resonating with me. So a decade ago, I never would have acknowledged the presence of something deeper, whether or not you want to give it a soul or a spirit or whatever. The name essence is another word. I think that's a little more neutral for some people. I wouldn't even have explored the possibility. However, through my own journey of healing, and through, of course, bearing witness to so many other now global, international, other humans in their own journey of healing, I became very aware that there is something that makes each of us us. We don't actually even know scientifically how to describe it, or what it actually is fully yet. There's a lot of mystery that still exists in science about this whole experience of being human. Yet the way I understand it is, what is animating me, Nicole? Why am I me, and whatever my quirks are and my interest, even the start of this conversation, why do you want to be a psychologist? Well, something was pinging and saying, yes, this is interesting to you. And Sarah, if you were standing next to me over here, you might not have gotten that exact same ping, because there's something different intrinsically that makes you you. It's that intuition, that inner compass, that guidance. Again, whether you want to call it essence, soul, or spirit, it's the place from which I make decisions that are in alignment with me. So that's what that ultimately means to me. And I believe it is an interactive communication, if you will, with our mind and with our body. However, so many of us are so disconnected from that place of inner knowing, or so distrustful of that place, that we don't actually use that as our point of reference. And so ultimately, if we want to illustrate from that onion analogy I offered earlier, the journey of healing, as far as I see it, is pulling back that layering, right? All of the body dysregulation, all of the trauma my body is carrying with me, peeling back then all of my mental, right? All of the stories and narratives, my ego, everything I've created that I think is me, that I've carried with me from childhood. Again, all of this lives in my subconscious, peeling back that and then exposing that deepest place. And that's what that spirit, that soul, that essence, whatever we want to call it is. That's where I believe that we empower ourselves to navigate through life, because you'll also equally hear me talk about, especially here in the West too, a culture of outsourcing, of always looking for someone else who knows better, whether it's your best friend, your family, or an expert in any field. And while all of these people can offer, of course, some helpful information in some context, really it's us. This journey here is very unique. Even two humans living in the same environment in childhood can have two separate experiences of that in childhood. So that journey of uniqueness is really illustrated in that concept of essence, soul, spirit. Again, that thing that makes you, you, and me, that we all want to reconnect with as our point, our compass.
How has connecting with your soul changed your life?
So connecting with my soul, again, a decade ago, you would have never, Sarah, heard me using words like passion, like purpose. Yes, retrospectively, I'm able to say, yeah, intuitively, I wanted to be a psychologist. So I was finding something. I wouldn't have been shouting that from the rooftop, so that I'm passionate about this. And I have a purpose in life, and I'm interested and curious, and this is what I'm doing. So for me, pulling back those layers of conditioning allowed me to understand why I was so disconnected from that self, because I was overwhelmed in childhood, because I didn't have caregivers to help me make sense of the world, because they themselves didn't know how. So as protection, I began that state of disconnection. Yes, I performed in the world. I performed in ways that I got validated. I performed. I was good at school. I wore all of these identities, yet I had no passion. I had no purpose. I had a successful practice, though I might as well not have, because it didn't light me up. I was very stressed all of the time. I didn't have that. So for me, my reconnecting with me, pulling back that conditioning, making new choices that were more in alignment with me, regulating my body, allowed me to discover who I am. It allowed me to show up differently as a human who takes up space in relationships, and as a human who does have a passion and a purpose that she very much wants to speak on. So as far as I'm concerned, this journey of healing changed and will continue to change my life as I continue to discover aspects of myself as I grow, as I age, as my relationships change over time. So for me, it's been completely transformational. And it's why I really am so impassioned about talking about this holistic model of wellness, because so many times dysregulation, again, in our mind and bodies are keeping us disconnected from who we are. And that's an incredibly painful experience.